Hello, 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 everybody. This is your girl D, and Key's on the way. So never fear. She is definitely going to be a part of this phenomenal show with this amazing, amazing, amazing sister of ours, uh, Barbara Grant Kelly of GK Counseling Services.
That part, yes.
That part right there. And today we will be discussing with everyone where there is life, there is hope.
Absolutely.
And we will start things off by allowing um, Barbara to kind of introduce herself, from a professional perspective, and then we'll just kind of go from there. That okay?
Absolutely.
All right, then the floor is yours.
Okay. Well, hello everyone. As Dee said, I'm Barbara Grant Kelly. I'm a licensed professional. Well, rather, I'm a licensed clinical mental health counselor. Um, and my experience, well, I want to say 20 years, but it's probably a little bit more than 20 years. Spans probably 25 years. And I've been in practice with children, adolescents, adults, couples. We are talking about addiction today. In my mind, it's more of the paradigm of addiction. Um, and so I've dealt with that in different capacities, not just substance use. So I'm excited to have this conversation with my dear friends today.
Yes, and we are super excited that your schedule opened up for us to be able to actually,
It's a long time.
be able to have you on. Yeah, it's been a long time coming, and we are
Years.
truly, truly thrilled. Good afternoon, Beatrice. Good afternoon. It is good to have you join us this evening on this thing called life. We are, as Barbara has just stated, we are actually going to focus briefly on addiction, and we're going to hit it from a different perspective. And what I'll let you do, Barbara, is go ahead and kind of delve a little bit deeper into what you were just saying as it relates to focusing on addiction, not necessarily from just a chemical perspective as far as alcohol or drugs, but from the other perspective. And then we will come back, in just a second to join you on the screen.
Okay. Okay, so yes, I guess
Okay.
addiction. And when I think about addiction, well, a lot of people, the first thing that comes to most people's minds are alcohol, drugs. But when I think about addiction, I think about it from basically what it is. It's like it's a, when a person is has an enthusiastic devotion to something, and it could be anything. It could be, of course, the substances, but it could be a situation. It could be food. It could be anything. It could be an actual action. And when I think about action, I think about like self harm or sexual um, um, addiction. And so I'm looking at it from that lens, that it's anything that causes us to have an attraction or a devotion to something that causes a lot of um, disruption in our lives. And so that's when I said like the paradigm of addiction. So also another thing I think about, and maybe I'm going too deep. Oh, hello, honey. Too deep. But I also think about when I think about my work with people who had some type of um, addiction. We'll just use the cliche statement: addiction, or addicted to something. I always think about their collaterals, meaning their people, like their parents, their friends, people that they work with, anybody who has some type of investment in them, and and their understanding and their experience of the person who has this situation called addiction. For me, that is the hardest part because people have so many, what do you call it, prejudice, about it. They think that people should be able just to stop, whether it's the cutting, whether it's a domestic violence situation, and a woman just hasn't found the strength to move away from that environment or that person. They just don't understand. Am I going too deep? Am I getting too deep for y'all? No. Okay. Um, so that's really where I think that this conversation needs to go, about understanding just the experience of a person potentially who is having this journey of, I can't change what is causing me pain, but also the one thing that's causing me some level of joy. Though it looks like chaos from the outside looking in, it's creating some level of joy. And that's a hard thing to
Wow.
accept.
That is a very unique perspective. Let me say hello to those of you that are joining us. Again, hello, Beatrice. Good evening to you, Annette. We are so happy you're with us. And hello, Demetrius. It is a blessing to see you as well. It is a blessing to thank you so much, Annette. You always make us feel so good. Um, but what I want to turn around and just kind of hit a little bit on is what you said when you start talking about not being able to control those things that are in that person's environment. I guess you could say they're, and how those things may have an indirect / direct impact on the person's illness, because truly that's what it is.
Yeah, yeah. Um, illness. Yeah, you're right. When we think about addiction, and like I said, that thing, that cliche, that thought that comes up, substances or a behavior that's causing real harm. When we use the word illness, for some people, it is a chemical imbalance that they might be treating with the substance. But sometimes it's just a disordered thinking. And what I mean by disordered thinking, I mean like the beliefs that they have about their situation. Um, and I don't know if I'm going off base here.
No, you answer it the way you're led to answer.
Yes.
So like in my mind, what I think about disordered thinking, the simplest example I could give is a person who is in a domestic violence situation. Um, ugh, in a domestic violence situation, and they are making the choice at this point to stay in that situation because the pain of staying um, um, hasn't outweighed the pain of leaving. Am I saying that right? I think so. When the pain of staying outweighs the pain of leaving, that's when the person usually leaves. Um, and so the reason why they might stay is because they can't see that they are capable of some level of suffering until they can do what they got to do. In other words, going to a homeless shelter and not knowing anybody and being scared, or going back to their family and say, okay, yeah, I made a mistake. You can call me whatever you want to call me, but I need this help right now. They might not be at the level to deal with that pain. And so then maybe they do because they're like, okay, you know what? I can take this because this person is paying my bills. This person is the father of the kids I have, or this person has always done well. Or I know, um, Kenyatta, you posted just recently about the narcissism or the gaslighting, where they don't understand the disordered thinking doesn't allow them to see past the gaslighting because they're like, but oh my gosh, they were just loving me and they were just praising me, and now today they're just, oh my God, they're just knocking me upside my head. God forbid. Then you start thinking, well, maybe they're just having a bad day. bad day does not constitute what's happening. So in my mind, they're addicted and devoted to this situation. So it's not an illness as much as it's a clinical disorder in the brain, as much as it's a disordered thinking of the brain. Does that make sense?
That makes perfectly good sense. And one of our listeners, she actually, you know, kind of co-signed with what I just said. She was like, absolutely, great example, you know,
Okay.
as it relates to what you were just saying. Now, from the perspective of, you know, yes, we were talking about, you know, the chemical, you know, dependency, but then you also mentioned, you know, kind of say they get clean and then they're no longer doing the alcohol. They're no longer doing the drugs or whatever the case may be. You know, that energy has to go somewhere. And a lot of times, you know, I noticed when I worked in a residential rehab facility, that many times, not all the time, but many times, the residents would overcompensate in a different area.
Right.
They would start to smoke like a freight train,
Or gamble.
they would, gamble. They would start to eat a lot more. They would, you know, so it's like they would find other avenues, start drinking a lot of coffee. So they would go from the hardcore stuff that was deemed illegal and then redirect that to
something that's more acceptable.
Right. Because I would go in the group with them sometimes, you know, because I had such a, you know, I loved them, you know, and I'd be like, hi, my name is D and I'm addicted to caffeine. And, you know, and they'd be like, hi, D, you know, and then we would go through, you know, and I would just, you know, we would just kind of chop it up or what have you. And what I noticed is the fact that whenever you become a part of their culture, they don't feel like they're being judged. It's more or less a matter of, you know what, we all have something that we're dealing with. It may not be as extreme as what you're doing as far as what it's doing physically to me and those that are around me, but I still have my issues too.
Right.
So we had someone who is asking a question, and actually it's a twofold question.
Oh my.
You knew it was coming. You knew, I mean, you've known me for how many years? You know I'm going to ask questions.
Yeah. I hope I'm able to answer effectively.
Okay. In your experience, what has led an addict to decide that they want to get clean is the first part. And the second part is, how can a spouse or loved one who recently found out about the addiction start to help dealing or processing it?
Oh, those are great questions.
They are.
Great and heavy questions.
I'm sorry.
No. Not heavy meaning whoa, but like weighty, you know, like, well, the first part. Read the first one again to me so I can be better to answer it.
In your experience, what has led an addict to decide that they want to get clean?
First thing that comes to my mind is, you know, looking in the mirror. They're looking in the mirror and they're being honest about what it is they got on this road. But before that usually happens, it's when their behavior is causing so much chaos in their lives that it's hard for them to function. And that, I think, is when you might hear somebody who's in recovery say, well, I stopped for my children, or I stopped because I need to work, or I stopped because my parents won't pay my bills if I stay clean. That might be that first level. Or it could really be that if I don't get clean, I may really die, and I don't want to die.
Yeah.
I'm just, it's just so hard to look in the mirror and be honest about what got me to this point. So again, that part, looking in the mirror and being real honest with themselves and saying, I have a problem that is causing so much chaos in my life. I could lose some very important things in my life, some things that are very important to me. That has been my experience. It's not a hard, fast reason, but within those two things, I believe that's where it's at. The
Okay.
second part was how can the spouse or loved one start to deal with that situation? Oh, you got to take care of yourself first.
Mm.
I have found, and I'm not saying that every person who is with a person with an addiction or some type of behavior that causes a lot of chaos is codependent, but at times that might be it. And we have to check ourselves at the door. We have to really take care of ourselves. Finding out as much information about um, addiction, recovery, relapse. Because in relapse, where a lot of people lose a lot of their support because they're like, okay, you stop, and you stop, you have things happen. Why'd you go back? Because recovery is hard.
Yes.
Relapse is real. Just as much as driving a car, and you might roll a nail and you get a flat tire. Relapse is real, and it's just a bump in the road, and you get back on. But because people have relapse, people live, collaterals live in that relapse, and they promote a whole lot of shame. So learning how not to place shame on those people who are going through the journey of recovery is key. Um, and being non-judgmental. And and I need to say that being non-judgmental, from my definition, is having a set of values and beliefs, but not making other people
Uh-oh.
responsible for how you see the world. So working on not being judgmental. And this is a whole lot. That's the reason why it's amazing, because we have a lot of should. You shouldn't drink, and you shouldn't do this, and you shouldn't do that. Well, but they're doing it. So let's deal with the facts. So that would be another one. Just deal with the facts. Have some
Right.
radical acceptance around that. Radical acceptance being, these are the facts. I can't change the facts. I have to make a decision based on these facts and go forward.
I have a follow-up question. We often hear about, now that question was based on, after the person has come clean and say, okay, I need this help. What about, we always hear about that give tough love scenario to individuals that are in the midst of addiction and have not come to terms with that fact that I need help.
Mm.
How do
The
we,
swift kick.
how do we, kind of in love give tough love to encourage them to see, look, yes, there's this XYZ is going on, but you won't have to deal with this by yourself because you're not in this by yourself. How do we give that tough love in love? And I know each scenario is different.
It is different. It's definitely different. But my thought, the first thing that came to my mind is that cliche statement of tough love. When we think about tough love, we think about somebody giving it to a person straight, giving it to them raw. But tough love doesn't always have to be raw. Tough
Right.
love doesn't have to be in your face. Tough love can be just validation. Again, I must define what the validation is. Validation is saying, I get where you're coming from, what you're dealing with, how you see the world. It makes a whole lot of sense, and I may or may not agree. So being able to validate a person and support them is important. An example that might, oh, and not taking it personal, because tough love sometimes comes from a place of being personal, taking it like, it's a stab on your own life, and you don't see it that way because it's not the forefront, but it's your heart. You're thinking, I love this person, I want them to live. Why wouldn't they want to live? I'm gonna give it to you right now. You need to get clean. You need to get your life together so you can keep your wife, so you can keep your kids, because you're gonna lose everything. No, 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 that's crazy. Because what happens is that you are forgetting that addiction has taken the forefront and not anything else. So for me, tough love, because there's no absolute answer. For
Right.
me, tough love has been, again, checking myself and saying, this is so painful to see this person go through this. And they're going through it, not me. It is affecting my life, and I am going to have to allow them to get to their bottom line. But in doing that, remind them, I do love you, but it is too painful for me to see you go through this. So there are going to be some times when I say things and it might feel like pressure, but it's only love. And the way I usually voice that is, have you considered? Um, what about thinking about this? Okay, all right, I got you. I got you. I will be here. I will be
Word.
here. I don't know how. Because the way a person feels like you're there for them is different than the way you think you're there for them. If those of us who've had dealt with a person with addiction, and they call you and they're just like, I'm hurting. I'm hurting. Why you won't give me this money? You don't love me. You can't take it personal. You have to say, I'm going to support you in the best way I know how, and I apologize that it seems like I don't love you, just because I won't support you in the way that you need me to. And you just got to shut it down. Tough love sometimes means detaching in love. I don't know if that's the answer you want, but tough love always looks like judgment to me. And though I might agree with the tough love coming from the mouth, I'm about not injuring the person who's going through that situation.
Whew. That was just one of those take an exhale moment.
Greetings, Elder McGee. Thank you for joining us. We have a comment from Kevin Martin. I'm so glad that you ladies are covering addictions that most people would not consider addictions, and that is truly a piece of the puzzle. It's just like where some people need validation.
Yeah.
Some people are addicted to, we talk about social media and how people do so many things, but they need that validation. I need XYZ number of likes. They don't like my stuff anymore. So why, it's like,
Then
okay,
take it to the next level.
right. It's like people, and they wonder why, they go from being, and I'm just going to throw this out there, from being the church girl to the pole twirler, because they're not getting the necessary validation from the crowd that they were a part of. So they go over to the flip side to get that to get fed.
Mm.
It's almost like it's a mental thing.
It is.
It's a mental thing.
Yeah.
We talk about the addictions, but what about the the healing aspect of things? We kind of, because when you're dealing with recovery, like Barbara brought up, they have the 12-step program.
You know what I think about the 12 steps? That's a spiritual place. Oh,
Yeah.
those 12 steps are just, they're just beautiful when you, because they force you to face yourself and to face the core thing that potentially got you there. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes. I mean, whether it's Overeaters Anonymous, codependency, the 12 steps of alcohol, it could be anything. Those 12 steps are constant across the board because they force you to really look at what it is. Like I'm powerless. I'm powerless. You know, meaning I can only control what I can control. Everything out of my locus of control is whoever. You know.
Yeah. Now I
So,
have a question though. I did, while I was looking up stuff and, I mean, little Miss Analytical,
hmm,
um, I came across a couple of programs that are actually non-12 step
okay,
programs. And they said that they deal with things on a more holistic, um, from a more holistic vantage point than the
hmm,
spiritual aspect of the person.
hmm,
Now,
I
I
wonder.
guess because I was around when I was in the industry or whatever, I always saw the spiritual side of it, not necessarily the religious aspect of things, but because we are spiritual beings. So we have to look at our innermost self, which is hard, even when you aren't addicted to something.
True.
And so I was like, but like you were saying, the 12-step programs are, the 12 steps themselves are very, if people, like, when we were talking
Just
before, if they were to
look at the
truly take,
wording, right? Not the culture of 12 steps, because the culture of 12 steps at times gets people to the spiritual, or let me change the word up, the self manifestations.
there
The
you go.
manifestations are very strong. I look at sometimes as prayer being a manifestation or a true mindfulness. Um, yeah, but when you look at the wording within the 12 steps and you change it to I, it is a manifestation. It is
Hmm.
a way of changing the chemistry of your brain, ordering your thinking as opposed to being disordered, so that
Right.
you can be on a path of recovery. So when they talk about being holistic, I can see that. I can see that, and I can, because 12 steps is not the only way to find um, freedom from, being under the rest of some type of way of life. There's other ways.
How do we look at, now, because most of the times, and it's going back to the example you used as it relates to, you don't love me or you would give this to me, blah, 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 blah.
Hmm.
But how do we deal with not becoming an enabler or helping, like as far as the codependency or, it's, how do we, as the loved ones of someone dealing with addiction, and I think you kind of hit on it a little bit, but, as
I
far
did.
as,
I did.
but if,
Go ahead, finish up.
no, I was just saying, how do we deal with not enabling when we know that this is ongoing? I know it's about looking at the woman or the man in the mirror and they have to, and us supporting them. But when you love somebody, sometimes we find ourselves under, because we don't want them to hurt. We don't want them to feel alone. So when we enable that addiction by doing whatever that, or saying whatever, then how do we not crucify ourselves?
That part.
We know, it's like, I know they don't need that. Oh my God, I know. but I want them to know that they're not by themselves. But at the same time, I'm destroying myself because I don't want them to hurt. You know what I'm saying? How does the person that loves the loved one kind of, and I don't mean to go all
Girl,
the way there, but
I'm shaking my head because, as you're talking, I'm getting pictures of this is my life, so I can say these people. I get pictures of my mother. I get pictures of other family members. I get pictures of girlfriends, guy friends, and situations where I had to go through that. Even as a therapist, I mean, I'm a licensed professional counselor, but I'm a person first, and the best way that I can answer that is saying it takes time to get to a point where you wean yourself off. Because if you can look at it like I am, I'm thinking whether I want to say this or not. I'll just use this word as a cliche. Please, people, don't beat me up. But am I codependent on this person doing well so I can feel well? You know, because if you can be okay with somebody else's suffering and be able to step back and not want that for them, but be able to say, but you know what, it's not about me, then you're doing pretty good. But if you're at a point where you're trying to hold on to them and make sure that they're okay, you are going to kill yourself emotionally, spiritually, sometimes physically. So you have to really just look at yourself and say, what's happening to me? The other thing to me when it comes to enabling is it always enabling? I'm gonna give you the technical thing because the reason why I was smiling is because I think about some of these methadone clinics or these other places that that work to get people, and I shouldn't say methadone, but um, they use the same substance to keep people well and then wean them off of it. And before I started getting, my, certified addiction specialist, you know, certification, I thought, wow, they're enabling them. But honestly, when you're so dependent physically on a substance, you take it away, you can kill somebody. So on that professional level, it's not about enabling as much as it's trying to help a person be able to overcome that. But when it comes to that emotional, I'm giving this person money, or I'm letting them stay with me, or I'm letting them. I come in and I left this morning and I had a TV. I come home and I ain't got a TV. You have to ask yourself, what am I doing to myself? The other thing I was thinking was, I am not. It wasn't always like this. I'm not in the business of doing for people what they can do for themselves. If they don't get it from me, they'll get it from someone else. Now, I've heard arguments where it's like, well, I'd rather they get it from me because I know where they're getting it from and I'm safe. But are you? Are you safe? You know, I have recently, there was somebody who was in need and their situation I felt like was a bit addictive. It wasn't substances, but it was an addictive situation. But they had an immediate need that would help them get to the next day. That I was like, you know what? They can't. They have a person in their life who is keeping them isolated, that's keeping them from self care. I'm going to do this. But at the back of my brain, I said, but I can only do this one more time. And I can't say this will be one more time again. So how do we get to the point from in being, enabling and to empowering? Again, dealing with ourselves, saying, I have got to get comfortable with somebody else's discomfort. I have got to be able to provide for them things that are going to empower them as opposed to something that's going to keep them in the cycle of abuse. I mean, that's a very lengthy, gray area answer, but again, there's no hard.
It's a perfect answer because a Commitress actually said it like you were saying, the process.
Mm-hmm.
And, she actually has a book out dealing with where she was actually in an abusive situation, from childhood. And then she just, just by the way that her life was structured, ended up being in an abusive situation as an adult. She talks about it all in her books, but she kind of delves into, the part of, having to garner that strength to say enough is enough. And it's kind of, and it's not always easy, especially if you've got children involved. If you've got, things that you are legally connected to a person with, like if you are, whether you're married or not, like if you've purchased a vehicle or you're in a house together or, whatever the situation may be, it's not always easy to just say, okay, I'm done. Because you have so many dynamics. And then you have some people, when you pull that level of dependency off away from them, that whatever it is that you give them, some people become violent. Some people become very vindictive, because I've known situations where people have gone to jobs and just and it's just awful. Heck, I've been in a situation where a guy came to my job. When I told him, look, you know what, I can't deal with you. You doing the most, because he was an alcoholic, just a flat foot alcoholic. I was like, I can't with you. But that was not what was presented initially to me. And so when I walked away, he started calling my job on the regular. This man was so crazy. He went to my pastor and made it seem like I just dropped him like a hot potato, because I wasn't one to put all of my business, my personal business, out there. So everybody didn't know what I was dealing with, in my personal life. So he goes to my pastor, sets up this counseling session for us and all of this stuff. Oh, yes, baby. And it was like, so after service one particular Sunday, my pastor calls me in, and this scam booger sitting in the office. Now, he didn't come to church, but his old musty nuts was there for this counseling session after worship.
Right.
And so when I'm called into the office, I'm thinking that he needed me for something, or, and then I see this person and I'm like, why is he here? Well, just I need you to come in. So I said, there's nothing to discuss.
Can I tell you? Can I tell you what's in my head when you're telling me this?
Please.
When you started with the whole, a person becomes violent, my first thought was across the board. It could be alcohol. It could be a relationship. It could be anything. It could be a person who's cutting. When you take that level of security away from them, yes, cutting could be a security because it's not always about suicide. Alcohol could be security because it's a coping strategy that's been very effective for somebody. A relationship of a person being there is a security. When you take away a person's security and level of floating, then they are drowning. And their life jacket is to get very focused on their business. A technique that works very well when it comes to being successful with money and whatever You get so focused on your goal that you find all the kind of things that are going to help you, and you employ them so that you can get your goal. And it might look crazy. Some of our richest people have done the craziest things, and they're billionaires. So therefore, the people who've done, those things where it's crazy are still in these relationships because their level of security is being snatched away. That's why when you're on the side of I want to do better than I am now, whether you're the person that's going through the journey of trying to get freedom, or you're the person who's trying to get away from the person who's having some kind of whatever, you got to come up with a plan of action. Whether it's self-care when it comes to addiction, or whether it's a safety plan when it relates to domestic violence. It takes, as the young lady said, a process. You've got to get it set up. You got to say, hey, this is what I need to be successful, and these are the steps it's going to take. And it might take a month, it might take a year, it might just take a day, but you have to have a plan of action. And that's what they're doing when they're like acting crazy. They're like, oh no, you took my, oh no, oh no. I had a situation where somebody, I told them that I would no longer, be a resource of help for them. And of course, they told every lie on me. And by the grace of God, the people who they were talking to knew who Barbara was. And they checked in with me. And I said the same thing to them. I said, they're drowning. And that's their life jacket. They're calling you to get you on their side so that you will talk to me about being there for them. So just know that, it might seem like somebody's crazy, but they're just focused and they're trying to survive, and they're trying to put on that life jacket and survive and float. I'm not trying to make it all pretty. I'm just, I come from, the point of what's helping, what's hurting, and not judgment. I'm coming from a standpoint of what is causing this and why are they doing this? Oh, that must be the reason why. So what do I need to do to get to my level of safety for myself or for them? What do I need to provide for them so that they can thrive? But, as you tell that story, I promise you, as you're telling that story, I was thinking, what was going through this man's head?
Okay, I got it.
Okay.
So this couple questions that are being sent, because they're being sent directly to me. I feel anger and express it at times towards my loved one with the addiction. How do I control that anger to be a positive support? The second part of that question is, how do you empower your loved one who has the addiction? How do you validate their feelings throughout the whole thing?
Now I'm going to put the first part back up first. There you go.
Oh, I think the first part to that question is you got to understand what anger is. Anger is the experience of somebody or someone keeping us from something we really want. So understanding what that anger is. I'm angry because you're keeping me from having a loving, non-chaotic experience with you. Maybe the anger is, it's keeping you from having a stability. You have to understand what your anger is. And I mean, that's the first thing in my mind is, you got to understand that anger. Now, how do you control that anger? I mean, there's so many ways. Understanding what that anger is and being able to step back and understand that, they're not causing anger. It's the way that you're looking at the situation. And if it's not about you anymore, potentially, if it's not about you anymore, and it's all about them, maybe putting them in contact with those people who they will listen to. or new people who will, catch their interest. As I'm thinking about this and I'm talking, those of us who have teenagers, we can tell them something all the time, all the time, all the time. God forbid they go to their friend's house and the friend's mama tell them, and it's gospel truth. You know, or somebody in the street or a teacher tells them. So maybe finding somebody of support, that they hold in high regard, that matches their value system, that matches their way of seeing the world in their tribe. Maybe that will help. But the best way in my mind to support somebody is, first remember, it's not about us, even though it affects us. It's so easy. I got it. The words, they seem so easy, but it takes a lot of work to step back and say, this is not me. Maybe the prayer of, decrease me and increase you so that I can be a better support to that person. Because because we love people so much and so hard. We want the best for them that we think the way we're seeing it is the best way. That's my opinion.
Okay.
I don't know how
Well,
that helps that person. I just want to answer okay.
Yeah. We've got to come and thank you, Barbara, for your insight. As I once had to make the choice of either kill a young man in my apartment because he was stealing. He was stealing my $150 TV or simply scare him off. I had to think to myself, was his life worth less than $150 because he was in the grip of addiction? In the end, I kept my TV and he kept his life. I like to think I made the right choice. And I pray staring down the barrel of a gun was enough for him to get help. And then you had Demetrius, where she actually responded and said, yes, a plan of action and consistency. Do the work.
As that gentleman was giving that comment, I think his name was Kelvin, I was thinking to myself, in being a support, it's hard to do it in the heat of stuff. So I think the easy answer there would be practicing in a less stressful situation. Something that's still giving you some level of anger, but stopping and asking yourself, why am I doing this? And working on changing your mind or turning your mind to something different of way of dealing with it. And when you get in the practice of that with less stressful, less demanding situations, it will become easier in those things that have so much profound impact in our lives, like those loved ones. So, that's the best way I can put it.
Now, I want to hit something real quick in these last couple of minutes before we slide up out of here. With us dealing with this pandemic, there is a lot of, depression. There's a lot, and then here we are at the holiday season, which is peak season for, heightened emotions anyway. Mm-hmm. But then with people dealing with so many different issues from, loved ones being ill, maintaining their home, being able to feed their children, being able to get their medication, and even having to make a decision between, do I buy, this pack of ramen noodles, or do I go get my medication? I'm just using that as an example, an extreme example. Yeah. But, there's so many things going on right now. What can we do and what can we say as it relates to, basically what we were saying from the beginning? Where there's life, there's still hope. You can still make you can turn the curve. You may be on the Indy 500, that seems like you're just going around in circles. You may be, on one of those old crazy mountain roads in North Carolina, going down the mountain or coming up the mountain. whatever, where, it looks like you about to go over the cliff and down down the way.
Lots of those, lots of those.
But as long as you are focused on the road and the path you are on, you can make it to your destination of sobriety. You can make it beyond that moment of depression. And I tell, people all the time, even when I was dealing with, because a lot of people don't know this. In college, I got to the point where I was addicted to alcohol. That would be the first thing I would want early in the morning. I would wake up, want my NJ, and I kept it cold in my refrigerator because I didn't like it room temp. I would take my couple of hits, my couple of fingers, first thing in the morning. Mm-hmm. And then I would go take my shower. Okay. And then I would do whatever else I need. But I needed that to kind of help calm my nerves. That's so I understand and I get it. But when I realized, okay, D, this is affecting your grades. This is affecting everything that you want to do with your life. I had to make a conscious decision and say, okay, this is not easy for me to turn, because those cravings would come. Like, it seemed like they came harder after I mentally made the decision, okay, I can't do this.
Of course.
I stopped. I made it a point. I told those people that I used to do all the drinking and all that stuff with, I told them, I said, it's nothing personal, but I can't come around you all for a while because I'm trying to detox. I've got to stop drinking so friggin' much. And those were my roadies. Those were my ride or dies. Those were the ones that and this was when I was a freshman in college. This wasn't, when I was at Mississippi Valley with Kay. I was at a different university in the SEC at the time. Mm-hmm. So it was one of those deals where, I had to tell them it's nothing personal, but I got to pull away from you guys. Mm-hmm. It was male and female. It was a group of us.
Okay.
And it was hard because I didn't really deal with too many other people. And that was hard for me to have to say, these are people that I have broke bread with on a regular basis. These are people that I know genuinely care about me. But I had to realize that I had to love me enough to say, okay, D, they're not forcing you to put that glass up to your lips. Mm-hmm. They're not forcing you not to go to this class because you take another nap because you sat up here and you drank too much.
Right.
And that part, where the actress said, do the work, that part. And doing the work is the hardest part for the one that is addicted.
Right. I think as you're talking, I'm hearing you. I'm hearing you. And I'm also hearing you from a standpoint of your belief that as long as you stay on that road, there's a way that you can have it. I think the problem comes when we fail to put in some of those words you said was, there will be bumps on the road. Mm-hmm. And so in this time of COVID, because that's exactly where you started this at, and people potentially being maybe by themselves or with other people, you have to remember that, there are going to be bumps in the road. Let me say it this way. We were never designed to do this life alone. As you said, pushing those people away, it is key to replace them with people that are a reflection of your change language. There will be bumps in the road, but you have to have people that are going to, that are going to encourage you in the bumps to say, okay, you fell up, but you do have to, you fell down, but now you have to get up and you got to start walking again. And once you start walking again, that will become the past, and what's in front of you will become your future, and that will no longer be. So know that you can do this just like you did it yesterday and the day before.
One craving at a time.
Right. So with COVID, this cliche statement is, "Gosh, is this going to end? Is this going to end? Is this the way is this the way the world's going to be?" I'll
Mm-mm.
say this. Yes, we are still walking around with masks. Yes, we have to wear gloves in some places. Yes, we have to sit 6 feet apart. But November definitely doesn't look like March. And
No.
we made some progresses in this world
Yeah.
where we were up, get to your house, don't come out, don't breathe, shut it down, do whatever, da da da
She
da da.
said,
We
breathe.
are okay. Don't breathe. Don't look my way. Now we're able to look people's ways. Now we're able to make other connections. So if you're a person who is in recovery, make sure you have your tribe with you. I know Zoom is, oh my gosh, it can be so impersonable. But now we're designing it where it becomes more, engaging. So
Yeah.
get to your meetings, your AA, your NA, your OA, your whatever it is. If it's some type of disordered eating, surrounding yourself with people who understand the language and understand the path. You have to have your tribe available to you. At this time, some people are brave enough to go out there with their masks and social distancing groups. Find your strength to get out and get connected to those people who are going to breathe life into you and freedom, and not be in a place where you are so trapped by your self doubt and your shame language, so that you can make it through. But the other part is, understand that, what's the song? We fall down, but we get up. You know, if you have a relapse, it was that relapse, and you can get back up. People will shame you, but that is their belief about you. You will have guilt about what you should have did, whatever, all that stuff. But you can always change your mind to that place of, you know what, I can get to this point. In my mind, hope is kind of like faith, and faith is kind of like having that steadfast belief system that it will come, even though it takes a while. You have patience in the duration. So when you say there's a will, there's a way when you're on that journey, I think that's the missing part, is that we have to get people inch to it. Sometimes, and I'm not saying this is you, but at times, people who are in recovery, because they did it, they forget where they were at, and
Speak that.
they shame people who are on that journey.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, well, I did it, you can do it. They don't exactly say it that way, but they forget the compassion piece. And when you don't have compassion that you're giving, it's hard for some people to have self compassion. So in this era of COVID, please have some compassion for yourself. If you're dealing with something that's causing you some distress, have compassion. Understand that we are not perfect people. That that we make mistakes, but we can always change our mind to good things. You know, if you need to talk to somebody, can I share some things that I was thinking about?
Please.
A little shameless plug here. I am in North Carolina. I'm only licensed in North Carolina, but I'm an African American woman. And so there's this wonderful site called Therapy for Black Girls. They need one for men. Yes, men, don't beat me up. But Therapy for Black Women.com. Please go out there, find someone. Um, there's one that was designed by these young African American young people. It's called notokayapp.com. Notokayapp.com. And
We have that.
Yes, but you list people, and when you're not okay, you let them know. You put your tribe, you put your list of tribe people who are going to be there for
there.
you, how to speak to you, how awesome,
On both phones, yeah.
so they know to come to you. If you're a person that don't want to talk and you want to text, I mean 741-741. I tried it out. Text 741-741. And I sent it, and immediately somebody texted me and said, "Hello, I'm here for you." And I talked to them, and I said, "Oh, I'm just a mental health professional trying to see if this works. We are real. We are real people on the other side." And the thing about it is, it's a crisis line, but
Right.
at one point they were saying it was a suicide line. But no, you can call when you're just wanting to talk to somebody. They said you can call just to talk to somebody. Do it.
Well, yeah, they actually have 4 different resources available. It's the National Domestic Violence Hotline. It's the National Suicide Prevention Hotline, the SAMHSA National Hotline, and then they also have the Veterans Crisis Line. So all of those are actually connected to the Not Okay app.
Awesome. And I just think that it's important where we have isolated, no, we haven't. We have been isolated, that we understand that there's alternative ways of connecting to the world outside of us, outside of our 4 walls, so that we don't get consumed with our thoughts and we get to a place where we start self, destruction. So just please use those things.
Is there anything that you can think of? Okay. Well, on that note, I think that is the perfect way to end this segment. It is the absolute best way to end this segment, letting them know that there is hope.
Yeah. Someone's listening.
There is hope. And if you don't know anything else by now, you can hit key and D, and we will send you in the right direction. We may not be able to give you all that you need, but we are connected to the people that can connect you to especially if we're like Barbara, she's able to help those that are in North Carolina. But we're able to connect you to people in other states. She just gave what's the site you were saying again? The
Therapy for Black women.
Therapy for Black women. Do they have a Facebook page?
Huh?
Do they have a Facebook page as well?
Yeah, I'm sure it does. I don't know about the Facebook. I've been getting off of Facebook. It's the website, yes.
Okay. Well, it's the website, Therapy for Black Women. And I'm pretty sure that there's a group out there for men as well at this point, because our men are starting to realize more and more that they need help and they have a support system. Yeah. So what I'm going to say is thank you to everyone hello, Mr. Wonka and Kamitris, thank you for joining us. We appreciate you. Thank you, Beatrice, for joining us and sticking and staying with us. We know that you are truly busy with working with all those people in the healthcare industry.
Right.
And we appreciate all of you for what you do. And thank you to everyone that joined us today on this thing called Life. Barbara, if you would stick around just for a moment. Yes, all right. Take care, everyone.
Dearly beloved, we have gathered here today to get to this thing called life.